Hey everyone, Laura here with Rags to Rugs, and today we're all about fabric, specifically how to cut your fabric strips in preparation for that next rug project. Now, a question that you ask me a lot, I hear this so often, is what's the best way to cut my fabric strips, with or against the grain? Well, there's actually three different ways that you can cut your fabric strips, and we're going to talk about all three of those. But first, let's talk a little bit about your fabric. Now, your fabric strips, or fabric, is made up of lots and lots of threads. Those threads are known as yarns in the industry. Those threads are going two different directions. Half of the threads are going along the selvage edge, the finished edge of your fabric. The other half are at a 90-degree angle to that selvage. All of those threads are interwoven. Some are going up and over and under and over and all over. But anyway, they're all interwoven to the end result being this beautiful piece of fabric. So what exactly is the grain? Well, to find the grain of your fabric, you simply follow those threads, going straight with the selvage or going at a 90-degree angle. That's the grain of your fabric. So let's go back to that original question, the different ways you can cut your fabric. And I'm going to share with you what that means and what their merit are. And you can decide for yourself perhaps. Cutting with the grain is cutting lengthwise along the selvage edge. So let's just say you had a 6-yard piece of goods that you just picked up for a good price at the fabric store. And you're going to get, when you cut with the grain, you're going to get 6-yard strips of fabric to make your rug, right? Whereas if you cut across the grain, again, cutting at a 90-degree angle to that selvage, you're going to be limited by the width of that piece of goods. Most of your fabric is either 45-inch wide, 60-inch wide, and let's remember that it takes about 9 inches of fabric strip to make one stitch. So if your piece goods is 45 inches wide, you're only going to get about 5 stitches on each of those pieces, so there's going to be a lot of connecting of strips, as opposed to cutting with the grain that you can have as much as 6-yard strips of fabric for your rug. Now, the third option is one that a lot of people don't think about or know much about, and that is cutting against the grain. I've diagrammed here a 45-degree angle, but you could cut your fabric at virtually any angle. But the 45-degree angle is a really popular one in the industry, and coincidentally, that is the cut that our fabric rolls, our beautiful fabric rolls, are cut at. These are cut at a 45 premium angle. So these are considered premium fabric rolls as opposed to cutting with or across the grain. These are cut at a bias. And one benefit of this is the fact that these are going to be without threads. You're not going to have all those pesky threads that you're going to have to work with when you're making your rug. So those are a real benefit. But there is a negative side to cutting on the bias if you're cutting your own fabric strips, in that you're going to have different lengths of fabric. So some of your strips are going to be short, a little longer, maybe a little longer yet, but you're going to have a lot of connecting of those fabric strips. And you're going to have a lot of waste, because when you cut at a 45-degree angle, there's a considerable amount of waste. So that's yet one more thing you need to consider. So all in all, like I said, each one of these has merit. How do you decide which is best for you? Well, my rule of thumb has always been, cut your fabric in a direction that, number one, maximizes strip length. If your fabric is 6 yards long, you obviously would probably be better off cutting with the grain to preserve the length of those fabric strips. The second option, the second requirement, in my opinion, is minimizing the connections. So the shorter the strip, the more connections, more time invested in making your rug. Third is minimize waste. And we talked about this with cutting on the bias, that you're going to have some waste of fabric. You're literally going to be throwing away a lot of fabric. So that needs to be considered too. But all in all, you have 3 different options when you're cutting your own fabric. And so all those need to be considered. So anyway, I hope that helps, and I hope you'll stay in touch. While you're here, please subscribe to our channel, because we really appreciate, and we've got a lot of videos coming up, one of which is how to cut your own fabric on the bias. And that's going to be a really good one. So anyway, in the meantime, thanks for watching, and as always, make it a great day.